I have developed a creative practice, and I've always wanted to incorporate photography in that. I became interested in photography as a young girl. Growing up, I was surrounded by it. My grandfather owned several small newspapers in Oklahoma, and he was the first color printer in the state. As an adult, my dad inherited the local newspaper in my hometown called the Chickasha Star, and I grew up going to work with him. I remember helping him build spaces and going into the dark room and watching him develop film. And the first time, a face magically appears on white paper, and seeing the big giant green printing press pour out large spools of paper into neatly folded newsprint. It was my whole world. My grandfather, he helped my uncle open a photography studio in a small town near where I grew up. And I would go to my uncle's studio and get my picture taken. And it was this elaborate 2-story building that smelled like the wood paneling on the walls and had giant curtains that separated the receptionist space from the photo space. And I remember my aunt always wore this long, long dark braid, and she worked as a receptionist and also owned a dress shop upstairs. And that place felt like this wonder emporium to me. Growing up around that and understanding the connection between newspaper printing and photography and telling a story and putting it out there has really informed my adult life and the decisions that I've made in my interests. As inundated by that life, though, as I was growing up in the newspaper, going to my uncle's photography studio, I never really learned about photography, like the practices of photography, how to develop film. As a kid, photography moved into digital pretty quickly, and so my first camera that my grandfather ever gave me was a 1 megapixel HP camera with a tiny little screen that, it was hard to see and it didn't work well. I used it, but it wasn't super fun for me to use, honestly. Now, everyone's a photographer. We all have a camera in our pocket, but I've always been really interested in the art of photography and the art of storytelling. So I didn't go to school for photography. I didn't even take a photography class in high school. I have my MFA in creative writing, and I'm a middle school English teacher. I have developed a creative practice, and I've always wanted to incorporate photography in that. While doing my MFA, I read books written by people who would often incorporate images of all kinds, whether it was drawings, photos, things like that. And that always fascinated me, and I wanted to do something like that. And so when I rediscovered film photography, I was working for my family at one of their small newspapers in Kansas, and I mentioned to my dad that, hey, I'm interested in learning more about film. And so he gave me a couple of cameras, his old school camera, the AE1 program, the Canon AE1 program, and my grandfather's camera, the Yashica Mat 124G. He also gave me free rein to sort of explore the newspaper offices, and so I got a lot of free developing material. I found an enlarger, expired film, all kinds of stuff that I didn't know how to use, but I quickly looked up some YouTube videos on developing film and learned how to do that myself. And I hope to one day set up the enlarger and use that. Eventually, I bought a scanner and learned how to scan my own film. But I've been on this process, learning to edit in Lightroom and learning about the relationship between aperture and shutter speed and how to make a good photo and use light well. And on this channel, I hope to impart this fascination I've always had with photography to you and take you on my journey as I learn to incorporate it into my artistic practice and into my philosophy of storytelling. Because Humans have evolved telling stories of all kinds and all different ways. And that's really what connects us and what I'm really passionate about. So I hope you will come with me on this journey, and I will talk to you soon.